to hello. Welcome back to Hindsight 2020. This is video 13, and I titled this Cutting Myself to Feel Alive. Before I get started, I want to thank everyone who's been watching my videos, and if you're new to watching my videos, thank you for being here. All right, cutting myself to feel alive. So this video is going to be about a time a couple years ago, 5 years ago now, where I cut my arm. I'm not going to say my wrist because it wasn't my wrist, it was my arm. And I cut myself because I wanted to feel alive. I know that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but maybe it will once I get done. So this happened back in 2015. And if you've been watching my videos or if you've been following me on social media for the last couple of years, I've talked about some things I went through, some deaths, homelessness, breakups, just losing everything that I had. I talked about that. But anyway, in 2015, that was like absolutely the worst year of my life. That was after I lost my mom and dad, after I got married, and my wife at the time just left us, me and my son, and we ended up homeless. And I was renting a room, and a friend of mine at the time, her and her boyfriend offered to let me rent a room out of their house. So my living arrangements were quite unstable. There was a lot going on with those two, and then just me, just trying to figure it all out. So this particular day, me and my son's dad, we had split custody of my son, so we went back and forth with him. He came to the house. I had my son this weekend, and he came to the house to pick him up. And we don't get along. We cannot have a cordial conversation. I mean, we don't even exchange words when we're doing pickups or drop-offs. He's extremely rude, and his mouth is just ignorant. He's very ignorant to me verbally. So this particular day, he picked my son up, and I feel like it was over a basketball that I didn't want my son to take. So my son, he goes outside, he gets to the car, and we kind of exchanged words about this. I think it was a basketball. I can't remember all the details, but I think it was a basketball. So we kind of exchanged words. I said, it's not going. And I left. I went back upstairs to my room. And he never pulled off. He was downstairs beeping the horn, and this is late at night. He was completely embarrassing me. He just stood in the middle of the street and he beeped the horn, and this went on for probably like 5 minutes, and I was upstairs and I was humiliated. He wouldn't stop. Then he proceeded to bang on the door, and I wasn't going to answer the door. So all I remember is I just felt so invisible. Like, he was relentless. He's always relentless. And with everything that I had going on in my life and everything that I've been through, it's like he just never would let up. And he was just so rude to me. And that day, I just felt like, okay, am I even here? Am I alive? Like, for someone to be so rude and ignorant to me, and I'm not ignorant to them. You know, I could not understand it. I could not make sense of it. He was completely humiliating me, like I said. And I sat in my room, and I remember I started crying, and I don't know if I like blacked out or what. I don't know. But I got this urge to need to see blood. I needed to see blood. I needed to see that I am still here. I am physically still alive on this earth, because at that point in my life, I didn't feel alive. Like I said, I was going through all kind of things in the background, and then I have this going on with my son's dad, and he was just treating me like I was nobody. And I just remember I needed to see blood. I needed to draw blood from my body to see that I'm still here. And that may not make a whole lot of sense, but that's how I was feeling at the time. I needed to feel alive. So the only thing that I had that was sharp enough to accomplish this was an eyebrow archer. You know, the little tool where you cut your eyebrows and shape them up and stuff. And those things are really sharp. I didn't realize how sharp they were. So I'm going to try to show a picture of this. But I didn't cut my wrist. I cut my arm. And let me see if I can. That's kind of not that good, but I cut here first, this one, that little line there. And I remember thinking to myself, that's not enough. That's not deep enough. That's not enough. So this one here, it's really faded now, but and it actually sticks up and everything. Like the skin is actually, like it sticks out of my skin because it was that deep. So I took that eyebrow archer thing, and I just remember one stroke, and I went really hard and really fast. And when I did it, it was like I came back to life. Like so much blood started coming out of my arm, and I actually started to freak out because I could see flesh. The cut was extremely deep, and I started to freak out. I think I started screaming, and my neighbor, who I was pretty close with at the time, I started screaming. I think somebody called me actually, and I told them what I did. And within minutes, the paramedics were banging on the door, and I refused to go down and answer the door. I wouldn't go down and answer the door. I ended up wrapping it up with a towel, and I just applied pressure, and I was crying hysterically. And you know, I was just like, what the fuck did I do? Like, what the fuck did I do? I was scared to death. I really thought I damaged myself. Like, I really thought, because it was so much blood. And I was just like, oh my God, what did I do? And I locked myself in the room. Like, I wouldn't answer the door for the paramedics or anything. They ended up busting down the door, and they came upstairs to where I was at, and they ended up busting down the door where I was at, and I refused to go outside. I mean, it was like a fight. Like, it was a complete fight to get me out of the house so that they can take me to the hospital. Because they looked at it, and they said I definitely was going to need stitches because it was that deep. But I didn't want to go outside. I didn't want anybody to know what I did. I was embarrassed. I was humiliated. And finally, when I did go outside, everyone was outside. And I ended up they took me to the hospital. And I started freaking out there. They I had to get stitches. If I the doctor told me that, because I was refusing to get stitches. I was freaking out about the whole idea of getting stitches, because they have to stick a needle inside of the wound to numb it, and then they have to stitch me up, and that whole thing freaked me completely out, and I didn't want them. But they told me that if I didn't get the stitches, that they would, what is it, 302, 301, 302, they would 30 something me. And I didn't want that. So eventually, after like long drawn out crying and the doctor talking to me, and I finally agreed, and I went ahead and I let them do it. I let them stitch me up. But there was a lady who, I believe she lived pretty close to where I was living, to where this happened, and she was outside. And she's actually friends with my son's dad. And she told him that I tried to kill myself, that I tried to slit my wrist, which was completely not true at all. I'm not suicidal whatsoever. I did not try to kill myself. I didn't even cut myself in a spot to even attempt to kill myself by cutting my wrist. And some things came out of that. I think he tried to take me to court for that and said I was suicidal and things, like tried to take custody away from me to get my son, which was an ongoing battle with him since my son was 3 years old. He always had me in court trying to take custody away from me. But that was completely not true at all. I never tried to kill myself. I wouldn't even do that. But that was, I don't know, like 2015 was a really tough year for me. It was a really, 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 really tough year. It was a really lonely year. It was a very confusing year. I didn't know where I was going with my life, or what I wanted to do. I was still grieving, and I was still trying to be a mom, and I was still working, and I was just still trying to figure it all out. And like I said, like it was a lonely year. I felt unseen. Like I was experiencing so much pain, and it's like people knew that I had lost a lot of family, and people knew that I was pretty much homeless, but I didn't feel like anyone really cared about me or my son. And like I questioned if I was even still alive. Like I felt like I had died, and I was just moving around through life as if I wasn't ready to cross over. That's what it felt like. Like I was in between death and like the afterlife. And when all that happened with my son's dad, he made me really feel like I was not alive. Like how can someone be so nasty to somebody who is hurting? I was hurting. And I was still trying to live. I was still trying to be a mom, but I felt like nobody was here for me. And in that moment, I didn't know what else to do to remind myself that I'm still here, that I'm still alive, like in the flesh. So drawing the blood was like a wake-up call for me. Like, Chrissy, you're still here, and you still have a life to live, and you still mean something, even if you don't mean anything to, the people around me. Even if I didn't mean much to them, I meant something to me and my son. So when I seen that blood, it really was a wake-up call. It was like the effect that it had on me was, all right, like, you're still here, and you got to get yourself together. Like, you got to figure out a way to bounce back and to get back up. And those people, your family that passed, they're gone. And there's nothing that I could do about that. But I still had my life, and there was something that I could do about my life. So, not long after me doing that, I ended up looking into going into actual shelter. I needed to get out of that environment that I was in, and I needed to get away from people who were doing me more harm than good. And the only opening for a shelter at the time was about 45 minutes away, and that ended up being the best experience for me and my son, to get away and to meet new people and to build new relationships, and just to see another town. But the act of me cutting myself is clearly something that it's really hard to see. It's clearly something that is there. I don't hide it, but I don't talk about it. Me cutting myself is something that I don't like to talk about. I don't get asked about it a lot. Every so often I will get asked about it, but I think people will just assume that I tried to commit suicide or something, just because when you see people with slits on their wrist or their arm or whatever, you just automatically assume that, but it's not true. But this is definitely a touchy thing for me to talk about. That was a moment in my life where I am not proud of this. I'm not proud of me cutting myself. It's something that my son sees, and for a long time he thought that I tried to commit suicide because this is what his dad told him. Oh, but that's not true at all. I never tried to kill myself. And I would not try to kill myself. Even if I don't think I have anything to be here, like for me, I definitely have to be here for my son. So I would not do that. But in hindsight, looking back, what I learned is that I can't allow people to control my emotions, especially to the point where I harm myself. People are going to be people. There's nice people and there's nasty people. And my son's dad is one of those people he's nasty. And I know that I need to stay away from him by any means necessary. But I learned that I have to love me. And I always have to make sure that Chrissy is good, that I'm okay. So that when, those ignorant people come or they say mean, nasty things to me, despite what I'm going through in my life, it won't affect me. As long as I make sure that I'm taking care of me the best that I can, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, like everything. And I cannot let people control me, because essentially, like, they don't care, People treat people bad and nasty because they have something going on with themselves. So they're not going to care about you, or they're not going to care about me. And that situation taught me that. That situation magnified the fact that I got to love me. So I'm actually glad that I talked about this, because this is definitely something that I don't talk about. So that's all I got for this hindsight. Thank you for watching. And if you have a story, of self-harm, if you've cut yourself or took pills, or, you've harmed yourself in any way, and you want to talk about it, talk to me. I'm here. But other than that, I will see you guys again next week. And as always, thank you for watching, and I love you.